It's a pretty grand mission. Try to close mortgages in a day. I don't think we're there yet, right? I think that we'd call that an aspirational goal as of right now. Is there still a vision? You said that was the original vision, the core products, once you sort of figured it out and got past the initial idea of homeownership accessibility. But do you think there's still a future in which we could imagine homes, closing in a day, the full mortgage, signing with a lawyer, like the whole bit? Because we've talked about it in the past, and it's one of the things that I riff on quite a bit. It's like, it's one thing to say that you're going to do a great job, but you actually need a lot of different people and a lot of different companies inside of a value chain to all deliver. So how do you think about that as it pertains to, really being able to bring it all together to make that happen in one day? And how far are we from that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question slash statement there. The reality is we're not there yet, but I don't actually think we're that far away. Every year on this journey, I think we're getting a little bit closer. It's still the sticker on the wall, if you will, to sort of quote the Elon Musk of the world, where you kind of put some North Star on there and try to target it. But you're right. It takes an ecosystem. There's no single partner in this industry that was going to be able to execute on this. And that became very clear and apparent from day one. And we've gone out and spoke to a lot of the critical components, particularly in the back office side of it. I think there's some more work that needs to be done between the back office and the front components as well, and further downstream. I think when we look at it, there was four big challenges to execute this vision. Number one, so you collect a mortgage application that goes into a back office and there's a massive disconnect. Today, it takes 4 or 5 hours for an underwriter to restructure a deal so they can actually adjudicate it. The adjudication of a loan, frankly, with technology today, AI, even some of the early days of AI, if you go back 15, 20 years, probably could make a decision on 80% of loans today. But structuring it in a way that it can actually do that is where all the pain comes in. So there's a big problem there. The information isn't structured for lenders to actually adjudicate. Myriad of reasons. Could be information's incorrect, could be the income doesn't add up, it could be, typos or whatever else you want to come up with as to why that information is not 100% accurate. I think part of it is also exposure and transparency of what's actually happening on the lender side. And for good reason, you can't expose all the lending policies because you'd create more fraud than there already exists in this market. So you have to be controlled about how that information is exchanged. And I think this is a great use of technology where it can do a lot of the work without having to actually expose the potential challenges, and you can avoid the risk of challenges in that first phase. But that's something that needs to be improved, how these front end systems and people talk to the back end systems and people, so that you can expedite that process to adjudicate it when the application comes in. The second big blocker is really around the due diligence, actually following up on what's been said in the commitment letter. And so today, as you know, information comes in, the data is being collected somewhere, typically on documents, sometimes direct from source. And there's a chain of custody of that information. It doesn't always transition to the back office properly. So even if you're using things like the Flinks and other systems like that in market to collect bank data, as an example, that information is now recollected and started over. It typically starts over in the back office. So there's some work there that needs to be done throughout that value chain to be able to ensure the custody of that data across that chain so everyone can accept it. I think access to CRA data or information for validation will help improve this as well, these different checks and balances. But then even looking at Canadians as a whole, and today, we're not super trusting of all of these technologies. And so the uptick rate of using a Flinks isn't very high. You still need to count on the physical documents that are being shared. And so having the ability to extract that data and then cross-reference and validate it. And this is a great use of AI today, where it can actually do that on a lender's behalf. So that's a big challenge that we're actually working at solving ourselves. And then you get into some more of the back office challenges and restructuring and reworking of deals. And up till today, we get to a point where the deal needs to be re-adjudicated, and it slows the entire process down. And sometimes that's because new information is brought in at the last minute. Sometimes it's simply that the deal just wasn't structured for an investor on the back end properly, or there was something that came up in the title search, or whatever happens later on in the process. But these are all things that can be fixed with the right partners at the table and bringing in the right checks and balances at the right time. Like I kind of use this example. There are situations in the workflow that perhaps if we check title on day one, and the reason why we don't do it is because the cost is too high to do it. But let's assume we can get to a point where we're 80, 90% confident on day one. As soon as the application comes in, this deal will likely fund. So there's a case where, okay, can I validate the title at that point? And then can I ensure through that entire journey past that adjudication that that same check can be used in the entire flow from the lender to the title insurer to the lawyer so that it doesn't have to be pulled a second time, which slows the process down and then obviously adds cost. But it's an example of something that could happen earlier in the journey that typically isn't. It's normally at the very last day. And if there's something that comes up, it's going to start the whole process over. So it's an example of something I think can be worked through with some of our title partners in industry and lenders as they rethink how they would approach a product. The last thing I'm going to say in this is that the closing experience today is improving, but it's not where it needs to be. And so that's something else where I know there's a lot of cool companies working on solving that solution, but I think we really need to get to a solution where the data is transferred in one full packet that they can trust and they can quickly action, leveraging technology so that they can enable their people to do the job once and not three times, which is, again, something that seems to happen in reviewing the documents and having to draw them up manually and things like this, where it slows the process down. And so if you think about that, I kind of see FundMore in this as more of an orchestration between all these different partners and tools in this industry, but we're not going to solve the whole thing on our own. But like I said, I think the technology is now capable of doing it. It's just getting everyone else up to speed so we can actually execute that vision. Now, I guess the bigger question back to you is, as a lender, do you actually need to fund a mortgage on the same day? And so that's the question that I'm always sort of pondering and curious is if we actually executed on it, would anyone actually use it?
I might not give you the same answer that everybody else would, but for me, faster is always better because I think ultimately the consumer is seeking certainty. And the faster you can provide that level of certainty, and this isn't, a base assumption here of mine, this is, data. We've asked our clients, what do they want above all else? And the answer that we get back in every survey is certainty. And the way that we deliver that certainty is through speed. For me, that's exactly what I want. We reference it often, but it really is a miracle of technology when you think about companies like Uber, when you think about the Airbnbs of the world. What are they really giving us? As somebody who just booked a hotel room actually yesterday, planning an upcoming trip, like there's still a lot of unknowns when you go to hit that final pay button and you're really wondering like, okay, I know I've seen a couple photos of this hotel, but like, I know you're dressing it up for me a little bit. I know that you're only providing the best photos. So then I've got to go like look at the user photos on Google and other places. And like, I have to do all these other things to like validate. But like, if I truly trusted the information and I truly trusted the provider and I've had great experiences in the past, and I know that so many other people around me are having this great experience, I just want you to deliver certainty to me, and I want you to deliver it very, very fast.